Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest attempts by the media to distract people from Brexit, as the crisis in the Red Sea is being blamed for upcoming food inflation. But let's just consider how this actually should be an argument against Brexit, not a distraction from it. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So a major shipping route is attacked by pirates in the form of Iranian-backed Houthi rebels, and inevitably this creates a problem with cargo coming to the UK and other places from outside Europe. But that is a point that we should be focusing on. We get the vast majority of our food from Europe. Even since Brexit, 55% of the food that we export comes from Europe. Does Iran, directly or indirectly mucking about with shipping lanes in North Africa, disrupt supply lines between the UK and countries in Europe? No. And in fact, there's no such political instability that's really going to cause anything like that. If there were to be a disruption to supply lines between the UK and continental Europe, however, it would also disrupt supply lines from further afield as well anyway. Now, obviously, we're not going to realistically get all of our food from Europe. We're always going to want to import from further afield for various reasons, and disruption like this will then have an impact. My issue is not that the warned about food inflation is the fault of Brexit, because obviously it's not, or that we could or should do anything to prevent this disruption in the future. My point is that the main philosophy of Brexit, where food supplies are concerned, in fact, where the supply of goods in general is concerned, is that we should actively replace trade with Europe with that from further away. And that's not a result of Brexit thinking. That is direct Brexit thinking. They say that. They're explicit. They say it all the time. When you try to point out that leaving the single market and customs union created all these trade barriers with Europe, it's like, well, we'll just replace the trade with Europe because they have to concede its impacted trade with Europe. We'll just get things from further away. But as we keep saying, trade from across the globe comes with a number of difficulties and uncertainties. First, the cost of transport is much higher. And when there's a bit of a row involving, say, oil-producing countries, the cost of that transportation goes up a lot because the fuel goes up. And there's always going to be a bit of a row involving oil-producing countries just around the corner. Second, the food can't be as fresh if you're talking about food. The article concerning the Red Sea problems talks about meat and fish going up in price. Well, the meat and fish coming from Europe is not going to be affected by these tricks, is it? So how about this for an idea? How about we accept that a good proportion of our food and other goods will inevitably come from outside Europe? Europe's a very wealthy continent, so consumption can only be met by supplementing from elsewhere. Also, there are foods or components of foods that are produced only outside of Europe, Asia and Africa. We want them, so of course we're going to have to source them from Asia and Africa. And then they're going to come through the Suez Canal. But in the interests of, say, food security, how about a policy which says, look, we should at least actively try to reduce sourcing food which has to pass through potentially unstable or unsafe shipping lanes. This means prioritising British production first and foremost, and then from our much more stable continent for as much of the rest as possible. And the reason I'm making an issue of this now is because food inflation is going to be a key factor in 2024. Oh, before this issue in the Red Sea, food inflation was going to be a key factor of 2024. Only so much of it is because a shipping lane through which not even a quarter of our foodstuffs comes is unsafe. 2024 is the year when the UK is finally applying some standards controls at our Brexit border. Now, this is really important because we're at risk of importing animal diseases and unfit for consumption food items without them. We know this is going on right now. In fact, the standards controls being implemented still don't make us as safe as when we were in the single market. But they are better than nothing, which is what we currently have. But health certificates are coming in at the end of this month. But there's no checks for them, so I don't know how disruptive that's going to be. The checks related to this certification is coming in the spring. Basically, although we're applying a relatively light touch, we're going to see some of the trade friction which food exporters from Britain experienced in 2021 all over again. Only it's going to affect our imports this time. Quite simply, it means there's going to be a lot of products of animal or plant origin, food, that are about to get more expensive to import. Now, some will be too expensive, so we'll end up going back to the 80s, where I grew up, where certain foods you could only get them at Christmas, because you had to charge more for them because of trade friction. So you'd have to go, right, well, you're prepared to pay more for these luxuries at Christmas, so we'll just stock them at Christmas. Some foods will just go up in price to cover the cost of that extra trade friction. So this is going to add to food inflation this year. And it's not going to help anybody to go, oh, but Phil, this is down to the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. No, when food coming from Europe, which is, as I say, over half of all our non-British food produce goes up in price, it will have nothing to do with armed gangs in a part of the world that food has not been anywhere near. It will be because some daft Herberts in Parliament thought it would be a good idea to leave the most advanced international market in the world. And for what? They specifically said the reason, this wasn't leaving the EU, this was leaving the single market. They specifically said so we can get more stuff from further away, where it will take longer to transport, be more expensive to transport, and be subject to political power struggles going on outside our own continent. A government which is actually interested in national security would be doing what it can to reduce reliance on less stable parts of the world in our supply chains. That means reducing reliance on food and other goods, which has to pass through the Red Sea or the Panama Canal, because there's problems there as well, although of an environmental nature. It means reducing reliance on fossil fuels as well for security as well as climate control purposes. And yet you look at the Tories, they do the opposite. A week ago, they were hailing the fact that we're going to be getting more of our food from Northern Africa. Oh, this is brilliant. North African countries like Morocco, we're going to get more food from there instead of Europe. A few days later, we see the main shipping route under attack. If it were Labour coming up with crackpot ideas like this, the media would be all over it. But no, because it's an idea they got on board with, because it's a Tory idea, they will use this to distract. Because it will be true. Yes, some prices are going to go up as a result of this problem in the Red Sea. How could it be otherwise? Those ships have got to go the long way round now. Of course, that's going to impact prices. But that's not going to be a green light to blame all excess food inflation on it. And if anyone tries, let me tell you how I will deal with anyone who does try to blame Iranian-backed rebels for food prices increasing. I'll be asking them then, why are they supporting a policy of having more of our food having to pass through these unstable shipping lanes then? Why don't they support having more goods come from safe places like Europe? Because some goods have to come from Africa and Asia if we want them, and we want them, yes. But why are we actively pursuing a policy of reducing our imports from the safe and relatively stable shores of Europe and actively trying to import more through trouble spots when it makes the costs go up? How does that make sense? That would be my response to any Brexit supporter who tries to hide behind this later this year. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.